The Xiaomi Mi Mix 3 is without a doubt a great phone, but it is a slider, and that one still has to prove itself, and therefore I am a little bit concerned about a few things that it just comes along with. But before we get into that, let's see what's in the box, which would be first of all this case that you can use with the slider, because someone thought it's not possible because you have to take it off every time. No, you don't, because this is cut out, so it works without an issue. But I'm still not the biggest fan of this case, just for the reason that it's very smooth and therefore quite slippery. But it's free. Free protection is always nice. That's what she said. No, on the other hand, we have also a wireless charger that I think everyone will want to use because it works great. More about it later. And yeah, unfortunately not in the phone included, but as a dongle, the headphone jack. Now, let's talk about the design and build quality. When it comes to build quality, for what it is as a slider, they did a great job because it feels very solid. And after actually using this for a week, not really using the selfie camera, it felt like every other phone that is just made out of one piece. Buttons don't rattle, the back side is very grippy, curved towards the back, which makes the phone actually feel very narrow. And the in-hand feel, along with the weight distribution, is actually great. Because even though this phone is very tall, I was usually concerned about it flipping over. Not here in this case, but let's not forget one thing. This is a slider. And it comes with some drawbacks. I mean, one benefit is obviously that we have pretty much no bezels. That's super. But it's heavier, it's thicker, and it's in general just taller than other phones. For example, I would personally prefer to have maybe a teardrop notch and therefore have a 4000 mAh battery instead of a 3200 mAh battery, even though you should not be concerned about battery life at all. But also, for example, facts that dust and dirt could collect here, maybe scratch up the camera. This mechanism could fail at some point. There is already a gap that makes it feel a little bit hollow here. And even though we have magnets that keep it in place, who knows how long this mechanism will work as it is intended. I mean, everything that has some benefits also comes with drawbacks, and you have to know it for yourself. I mean, the phone itself feels great, but who knows, especially if it drops. Obviously on the back we have the fingerprint reader, which is a good thing because this is Xiaomi typical, very fast, very reliable, and one of the best ones out there. Camera does protrude a little bit. We have the mic, we have the SIM card tray, we have the Mi AI button, that on the global version I guess will be the Google Assistant. We have one speaker and only one speaker on the bottom besides the USB Type-C and the mic, because people told me that there is a second speaker here, and here is what I think. Now, this is the speaker and this is just a pass-through, but this is not working when we play media, because I think what it does, due to the kind of gap here, the sound resonates and for some people sounds like it would come from here, but no. It only comes from here. Now, obviously, we have pretty much no bezel. Buttons are placed very well. We have a notification LED here. And that's pretty much all I can say. It feels great. It is though heavy and it's tall, and not everyone likes this, just for the benefit of having pretty much a notchless bezel-less phone. Yeah, that's that. About the display, let's talk about that one. Obviously, we have the options for brightness. We have a night mode. We have contrast and color, where you can change the temperature for the automatic contrast, but not for the increased one. Ambient display, you can change the font. We have double tap to screen to wake and raise to wake, for those being concerned if it only works like this. We have also a face unlock, but you therefore have to just use the camera, and you have maybe seen it already. We have always on display, which has an impact on the battery, quite a noticeable one, and I will talk about it later. But in case you want to use that, it's there and it shows in your notifications, all good. The display with about 700 lux is very bright, definitely has great blacks, obviously nice colors, viewing angles are top, and I'm just gonna still give it 4.5 stars for the reason that I personally still wish for it to be a Quad HD display. I mean, obviously the benefit of having a 1080p display is that it conserves more battery life, so it will have more battery life. Not quite the resolution. And I'm just gonna say this, accept my opinion that I want a higher res display, and I totally accept yours if you want maybe the better performance and better battery life, because the display, for what it is as a 1080p AMOLED display, actually a quite clear and sharp one, does an absolutely superb job. What does the one speaker at the bottom do though? To keep it short, it's good. Good already means quite a lot though, because it's louder than many ones out there, and it sounds very nice and warm, doesn't sound low quality, doesn't distort, so it does a good job. But I mean, on the Mi Mix 2S we had a dual speaker that just worked better, which is kind of a downgrade by now. It still is good enough, but for a phone, which is pretty much a flagship these days, I would have still liked to have seen more. What I would have also liked to have seen though is a headphone jack, which is not a thing here, but I'm still, despite it all, gonna give this 5 stars. I mean, not just because of the option that we can use an equalizer in different presets, no, but because this one is so incredibly loud. Okay, I shouldn't maybe judge quantity over quality, but the quality is still good and it's noticeably louder than other headphone jacks out there. About performance, we can keep this really short. The 845 is as good as an 845 can be. It feels very fluid, it feels very, very well done. It's quite snappy, as you can see here. It responds really well. We have a lot of RAM because there is even a 10 gigabyte option, 6 and 8 depending on what you want, but it performs absolutely great and actually even holds that for a long period of time, because I was concerned about battery performance due to heating up. But after this initial heating up that I've noticed, even after playing Asphalt 9 for half an hour, nothing else really happened. It didn't get hotter, performance didn't perceivably drop, maybe in terms of benchmarks, but who really cares about those so much? So even in that regard, it does a totally great job. Now let's get to the one big thing so many people were concerned about: battery life. And I can tell you, no need to be concerned at all about. I mean, maybe it has to do with Android Pie. Maybe it has to do with the AMOLED display that is obviously more efficient, but I did still, despite the smaller battery compared to the Mi Mix 2S with now 3200 mAh, not expect what we got. But before that, let's talk about the charge. With the included wireless charge, 2 hours from 5 to 100% and you are done. That's just a little bit more than actually some need with a cable. And since it is compatible with Quick Charge 4, it should be even way faster than like 1.5 hours quicker than that. I didn't really try it with the charger with a cable, so that's good. Now, like I said, all those things that make the battery as good as it is, I don't think it's because of the standby drain. Because 3 to 4% for 8 hours is nothing special. That's normal. What is not normal at all though is the battery life for 1 hour of YouTube, where it got 7%. And that is something that only 2 phones so far achieved with my new testing, which is the Poco phone and the Samsung Galaxy Note 9. But also the battery. Now, first of all, I'm gonna start with always on display on, where I reached 6 hours on one day, about 8.5 hours on Wi-Fi, which just once again shows that the 835 was a little bit more efficient on Wi-Fi, but not so much on data. So here you get a little bit less on Wi-Fi, but more on mobile data, which is nice to see. Over the course of 2 days though, and especially with always on being turned off, this is where things get interesting, because I did not expect these values, and I have to actually show this to you so you can actually believe me, because it's hard to believe. I used it for 2 full days in one night. So 1 day and 14 minutes, if you can, 14 hours. 6 hours and 8 minutes of screen on time. And with, as you can see, the usage. So you get about 1 hour more screen on time if you turn on always on. I mean, I think that's totally worth the compromise, because with always on being off, this is a 2-day phone. Who would have expected that from a 3200 mAh battery? Even though AMOLED, even though we have Android Pie, I did not expect that. So 6 hours on mobile data, 7 hours with always on off, and 6 hours over the course of 2 days. I mean, that's just impressive. And talking about Android Pie already, here's actually one thing that I think is a little bit odd, at least in my case, because I'm still reviewing, as you can see here, 10.0.9, but as you can see, I just got a notification for 10.011, so I can't really try that anymore. But this is already running Android Pie, which is pretty much first for Xiaomi that they're amongst the quickest one that have the newest version. I mean, yeah, we still don't have an app drawer, which is, yeah, okay, fine, I guess. We have the newer layout already where we can change the quick settings, we have themes, and we have a lot of options. I mean, for example, you can obviously change the buttons. You can also use the full screen gestures, where, for example, home is swipe up. If you hold it, it's recent apps, and from the sides inwards, it's back. That's already nice to see. We get the option to show the notification icons. That's important. Also, battery indicator. In terms of sound, I already showed what we have. Mi AI button, storage, additional settings, for example, quick ball, tab plus, notification light, and all those kind of things. So even though I actually just recently knocked it down from 4 stars to 3.5 because there were some annoyances, now with all those improvements and actually some things that they didn't correct for years, like for example DPI settings that now work, I was actually very close to giving it 4.5 stars. Maybe I could, but I'm gonna give it 4, because just think about it. This gets updates for a very long time. We get already the newest version right now. It works better than ever. And yeah, I know, not everyone likes MIUI. But give it a chance, and I actually have to say, even though I didn't like it for a while, now with this one, it's working fine. Now let's get actually to one thing more. Google Play Store, because since this is still the China ROM, you usually have to install all those Google services. For the first time ever, these are all pre-installed, and all you need to do is install the Google Play Store app. That's all. Notifications get synced, and you get everything running out of the box, which is actually quite nice. About the call quality, it was good. Like I said, this is the earpiece, and it gets passed through. Connectivity was fine, reception was fine, nothing really else to say here. Then let's talk about the camera. I'm not gonna show the app because it's pretty much the same as anyone else on any other Xiaomi phone, besides the fact that we have 4K 60 now and 1080p 60. And like I said in my preview, that was the actual camera review already. So if you want to know a little bit more than I'm going to talk about here, watch that one. I'm going to keep it a little bit more compact here just to keep this review, shorter. Okay, so let's talk about the video the selfie cam, which is, I think, great, because just look at those pictures, especially from this distance already, super sharp. It does a great job, and this is now with the bokeh mode, that works absolutely super nice. I like it. The studio mode, I don't really know so much how I should think about that, because it's still a gimmick. Because, for example, here, it just cuts off my ear. And yeah, if you really like the other ones, I mean, you can give it a try. But what is more important is the quality, especially inside, for example, super nice and sharp, great colors. Sometimes taking a pic takes a little bit longer for some reason. And what we have though, due to the slider, is we have a front-facing flash. That, as you can see here, actually improves the quality, and you could use at night. I mean, some also achieve this with a display flash, but yeah, it's still nice to have that. About super low light, let's keep that as quick. This is a normal pic, this is the night mode. Sometimes it works out better, sometimes not really, but it gets usually sharper. So since it just takes about a second compared to pretty much instantaneously, you could use it at light if you want to give it a try. For example, here, this is with the flash, and now this without, and this with night mode. So it seems better, but if you look closer, like here, for example, and you use the night mode, artifacts appear. So yeah, but here it definitely works in these kind of mid situations. If you, for example, use this, it definitely gets more contrast, it gets sharper, and since it doesn't take much longer, why not? Absolutely, indoors also. It improves the low light qualities, and that's why I'm gonna give it 4.5 stars. Absolutely, without any issues. Now, about the main cam though, it barely misses 5 stars. I mean, it's the best Xiaomi cam by now. But we all know that the Mi 8 will get the same software and be on par then. And I gave it 4.5 stars back then, and I give this one 4.5 stars. But there is a time difference, and this one is better. This one is better than what I tested back then on the Mi 8. But it is still not quite a flagship level camera, especially HDR, for example, actually got worse over time, because as you can see here, this in my opinion feels less contrasty, less dynamic than what we got previously on the Xiaomi phones, where it got better. Quality though, still nice, good focus, good camera, sharpness and everything else. It's top, but it's just missing a little bit out on to be a proper flagship level camera. Now I'm gonna skip those just a little bit as a teaser, those pictures that I did in low light. And to correct myself, when I said that 1080p 60 was brighter, like for example 4K 60, that was a mistake. It's 4K 30. As you can see here, this is 4K 30. That looks better in low light. So if you want to take the video then, but more about that, like I said in the preview, like for example also this front-facing video. Let's get to the main cam now. 4K 60, and yeah, unfortunately you can only see 1080p 60. I can't really recommend that. I mean, even though the quality is good and the focus is top, but it's a little bit too abrupt. It's the fast movement that comes just along with too many artifacts. So if you want to kind of avoid that, use open camera and bump up the bitrate until we don't see those anymore. Because quality on its own is absolutely there. And therefore my recommendation still is use 4K 30, where we also get, as you can see, a quite nice, even though not super natural, but good working EIS. And the only reason why I'm not giving it 5 stars is just because, yeah, the autofocus is just a little bit too abrupt. Doesn't feel natural enough for me. But what I really like is the front-facing video. I mean, forget the little bit of exposure issue here. It's very natural, great colors, great detail, a little bit on the shaky side, even though EIS is turned on, but doesn't really mean that much. I really like the front-facing cam. This is top. It looks so good. Now, people have been talking about that the Mi 8 didn't have a good mic. Didn't have. And the Mi Mix 3 is supposed to fix that. and it kind of does because it's better. But it still sounds a little bit thin in my opinion. And especially can be blocked quite easy the way I hold my phone. So keep in mind that you don't block it and you will get a good sound, especially the closer you are. The good thing though about this front-facing camera, it's not cropped in too heavy. So you can easily use it for vlogging, and as you can see indoors, the quality is still absolutely top. Which actually already leads me to my conclusion. And I mean, you can see the ratings. This is a top phone without any doubts. With a great value. And I mean, Xiaomi was always known for that, starting already with about 500 euros. It's an easy recommendation. If it wouldn't be for the sliding part where I still have my concerns. Because, like I said, it's thicker, heavier, taller. For what? Pretty much bezel-less design. I mean, I would rather have the small teardrop notch and then use this space that I think is totally fine in terms of weight and everything else to get an even bigger battery, even though that's not necessary. You could also make it thinner. But all the qualities are still there. The phone feels great in hand. We just don't know for how long and how long it will hold up. But the display is top because it's actually quite clear, high quality display. The speaker, a little bit of a letdown because it's still a very good speaker for a normal phone. But this is not a normal phone, this is a flagship, and it's a downgrade from the Mi Mix 2S speaker. Performance is top, battery life, like I said, beats many bigger batteries in phones out there. So no matter how they achieved it, they did a great job here. Software, they improved, which is nice to see. Camera, especially the selfie cam, is great. Yeah. Actually, I'm pretty sure that a few people are especially appealed to this phone because of this sliding mechanism, because it's something very reminiscent. Some people like this kind of action. And all it does really good. But if you would ask me, would you recommend it or not? I can't say no, but I can't say yes either. So all I'm gonna say is, if you like the idea of a slider, this is pretty much as good as a phone it can get, especially for the value and everything else. But it is a slider. I mean, personally, since I don't usually use the selfie cam, I would wish for one block of phone. Like, for example, we would get on the Mi Mix 2S, which by now is cheaper. Still great value, but what I didn't like back then was the kind of more boxy design. This feels so much better in hand. So competition is out there. It's not that much cheaper or maybe more expensive, depends. Because on the lower end, we have the Poco phone. On the higher end, a little bit more higher end, I would say, there is something like the new OnePlus. We also get not actually quite that far off anymore by now. Galaxy Notes, G7s, there are so many other solid phones. But most of them usually have a notch or some other thing that you have to consider. So in case you want to know which one is better, maybe leave that down in the comments. But other than that, I don't really have anything else to say that I didn't. Super nice. But I can't get over the fact that I'm not quite so sure if this compromise of a slider with the drawbacks is worth it. So that's what so that's all I'm gonna say is bye. Until next time.